Today, we talk about software designed and developed by an engineer for engineers to help you in your construction management and infrastructure testing. I am your host, Brian Wagner, licensed professional engineer. And in this episode of the Engineering Quality Control Podcast, I'll be talking with Jeff Carmichael, a civil engineer turned software developer and co-founder of Qualomate, about quality management in construction projects and how engineers can use software or make their own. So let's jump right in. So now I would like to welcome our guest for today, Jeff Carmichael from Qualomate. Jeff, welcome to the Engineering Quality Control Podcast.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So we're going to talk about something a little bit different than what we've talked about on any other episodes because you have a product that helps with quality. But could you provide us with a little bit of background about yourself and what you do on a daily basis?
Sure. So I'm a civil engineer by training, and I'm from Canada. So I worked a little bit in the kind of between consulting and then on infrastructure projects originally in Canada. And then after a bit of time there, I actually moved to New Zealand to work on some big infrastructure projects down there as well. So I was down there for about 3 years, kind of over COVID, which was interesting. But yeah, during that time, I got really interested in artificial intelligence and software development and kind of combining that together with my experience in construction and civil engineering. So yeah, after about 3 years down there, I moved home to Canada and started building a startup called Qualomate. And essentially, what we do is automatically extract data from construction documents, like specifically like inspection reports and test reports, and then we map that data to a physical location on your project, and it's kind of like an interactive map that you can use to keep eyes on your quality program and reduce the risks that come along with not knowing exactly what's going on.
And that somebody doesn't have to read every word of every report to catch those little things, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's very visual, so it's all tied to your specification. So it's if it passes the spec, then it turns green. If not, it's red. Then you've got some more work to do. So I'm kind of doing all the software development for that, and as well as the kind of business side as well.
Okay. So from your experience on the infrastructure projects, where did you see like quality management challenges in that experience that you had?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was the planning of the execution. So most people in the business will do a really good job on, they're having inspection and test plans and those sorts of documents. But when it comes to the actual, in the field, making sure everybody's on the same page, we found that to be a bit of a struggle, which is sort of where I'm coming from things. So yeah, like for example, like having your lots like well defined and planned out ahead of time, so we need this many tests in this area, but also like making sure everybody on the project knows where those lots are, and so there's no like double testing or overlaps, and just those sorts of chaotic things that can happen if you don't plan out that actual execution of your quality plan. Because planning it before pre-construction is pretty easy. You make the documents and hand them out to the field team, but that actual execution seems to be a struggle, especially on the bigger projects.
Right. When you start talking hundreds of thousands of feet and distances, and I can understand where it starts to get confusing and doing different things at different phases and different people and different individuals and different companies. And you have all that. It's like the game of telephone that we all played when we were in elementary school. The message can adversely change.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You've got so many different teams that might be doing the exact same thing, but doing it in totally different ways, just in different areas. So yeah, that was definitely a struggle.
So if somebody was to like use a product like yours, do you have to know coding, or like what would somebody need to know in order to kind of leverage a product like yours?
Very little in terms of that. It's designed to kind of incorporate your existing workflows. So it's all based around emails. So you can just email your documents to the system, so that that part is pretty easy. And then creating the lots themselves is kind of really the only tricky part. But you can import them from, if you've got your CAD drawings, like a DWG file and things like that. But then you can also kind of draw them on the map. So it's very designed to be very like user friendly and a shallow learning curve, essentially.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the engineering and construction documents on the show, but you've kind of developed the software, so it's a little bit different in your approach to probably quality management. But I think that, like I say, with everything, when it comes to quality and it's learning and leveraging those experiences and those insights and nuggets of information from across the spectrum of what we do as
Mhm.
engineers. So do you have any like advice on, or can you shed some light, I should say, on how you manage the quality management and the quality control of the software when you were working on it and developing it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's relatively easy because in terms of from my perspective, it's I'm the sole developer right now, so it's a lot of just testing it out on my so I build it on my local computer and running things there, and then just going through that entire workflow of creating setting up a new project on my computer, and doing the whole thing before I actually push it to production so that people can use it. So there's that aspect of it as well. But then even kind of before it gets to that point, there's a lot of um, outside of those kind of main files that build the program, um, doing kind of off the side in like in a different kind of like a prototyping type environment. Um, you know, setting up inputs that the system will process, which is kind of more standardized, um, proper software development QA type approach. Um, so yeah, having that separate prototype environment for just one small aspect of the system that I'm building, and then making sure that system works, and then you kind of incorporate it with the full thing, and then do the full tests of how it goes. So that's been an interesting kind of learning experience for me, coming from a civil engineering background where quality is fairly standardized and well understood and laid out, but then the quality from software development perspective is very different, and requires kind of different procedures. That has been interesting learning, and then learning all the best practices from that side of things as well has been cool.
Yeah, because ultimately somebody's when you bring people in to help you on your software, they need to be able to follow it and not break it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So having everything kind of laid out and organized is very important.
And it goes back to those standard practices, consistency that you're kind of going. I mean, I think that's about like I think about the evolution of cell phones over the years. And I always said, and I see it with CAD too, like the the technology that AutoCAD has or Civil 3D has, within a version or two, MicroStation and Inroads is coming out with that from Bentley, or vice versa. Like it's just they're building on each other's technology and those
Mhm.
ideas and those concepts. And with that, I'm sure as you create different or improve things and add more features and things like that, that quality that you're doing in your early steps is vital to that long-term
Mm.
success.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's, kind of with any product, really, you build your core set of features, and then as soon as people start using it, it's like, hey, can it do this and can it do this? So you start adding those things in. So it really, your code base just kind of grows extremely quickly. So one of the great things about software development is that it's quite easy to do things like things that you have to do multiple times. It's very easy to not duplicate yourself, right? So you kind of define a function that does a certain thing, and then you can call that same function from different aspects of the app. So if it's querying the database, you only have to write that once across your different features, assuming it's the same data that you're looking for. But yeah, it's nice that we kind of don't get, especially in construction. Like in some aspects you do. If you're building a building and all the rooms are the same, it's kind of the same idea. That kind of goes to that like prefabrication almost. But in my background in the kind of civil space, civil construction is there's not much modularity when it comes to building a road. If you're digging through the dirt, it's kind of different every time.
Right. I mean, that's where you skip that save as issue that a lot of construction and civil engineering problems when you take it from another job or take it from another,
Hmm.
and then you only edit part of it or change portions of it. You're saying that if you call back to that original and that main one, then you don't have to worry about it being wrong or being save as per se, that
Mhm.
you structure your piles and your silos correctly.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the benefits of kind of this sort of digital transformation that's happening in the construction industry, where a lot of the players are using kind of similar softwares that do kind of a lot more. So if you've got some workflows, like if you're to set up a workflow in your software for this project, then you can easily copy and paste that across all the different uh, projects that you might have. So you automatically get those kind of best practices that you establish. That's the same as calling a function in a software program. It's just the repeatability is really going to be key, especially like with workforce shortages and all these kind of problems of people retiring and just passing that knowledge around is um, something that's sort of learned over the course of an entire career. Being able to transfer that very quickly to the next generation where you don't necessarily have a lot of overlap is going to be really important. So I think software is going to play a big role in that from all aspects of civil engineering and construction.
So for your software, do you need to have it on like a computer, or is it working in the cloud, or
Hmm.
how's it work?
Yeah, so it's all cloud based. It runs on Amazon Web Services, which is just not coming from a software background, software education myself, is kind of really amazing once you start to learn about those sorts of offerings from those major cloud providers. There's just so many features, and they make it so easy to set up a software company. Really, like once you know what you're doing, and compared to how it used to be, say 20 or 30 years ago. I remember watching when the movie The Social Network came out, and they were building Facebook at first, and they just had so many users that they had to keep buying more and more servers and set them up and doing all that stuff. You don't have to do that anymore. It's just the click of a button, and you've got all of the power of Amazon's global data centers. So it's really powerful, and I think it's going to just become more prevalent in every aspect of our lives, but even especially not even civil engineering or not even software development, but civil engineering itself. Um, if you work in an office, like a lot of the consulting firms I worked at, we have a server room that's locked and don't go in there. So that's the kind of on-premises servers, which is kind of the opposite of cloud computing. So a lot of companies are sort of migrating from those server rooms to the cloud, and that's providing so much value because you get access to, Amazon's just, they've got thousands of people building all these cool tools that you can use and leverage in your day to day. So yeah, I think that's going to make a huge impact in especially in civil engineering and construction of yeah, just kind of making all those processes better and centralizing the data and leveraging those sorts of
Right. And
data.
it's probably been accelerated a little bit with the hybrid work environment and the security of technology and the hacking and
Mm-hmm.
ransomware and all those different things. So I can definitely see
Mm-hmm.
where you're coming from. So you mentioned that you didn't have a software development background per se. So you taught yourself everything for this, or like what advice would you have for somebody that has an idea but really doesn't know what to do with it, or not trying to create competition for you, obviously, but like if they have an idea that they think can make the workflow or make their life better, what
Mm-hmm.
advice might you have for that in a
Yeah,
similar scenario?
yeah, I love that question because it's there's so much potential for people like civil engineers and just people that aren't software developers. It's getting a lot easier for those sorts of things. So kind of I kind of started off on maybe two different paths that simultaneously that sort of merged into one. Um, so first one is learning how apps work and that sort of thing. So kind of how I learned a lot of that was through no code platforms. So I think the first one I used was Google AppSheet, which is really good for building. We were trying to keep track of all the tests that we were sorry, the tests that we were doing um, for the project. So we were pasting everything into a spreadsheet, and it was kind of very just ad hoc. So I built a simple app in the matter of an afternoon that we could just type in what day, where we needed the test, and the information that the lab needed to know, and then it would send off an email to the testing lab. And yeah, so that was a great way to learn like how forms and databases kind of interact together. Um, and then kind of on the other side of the software development, like I said, that part got started because I was interested in artificial intelligence. So just kind of started reading about that, and then wanted to kind of try it out. So I was brushing up on my Python skills, just trying out tiny little projects, simple stuff like you know a program that plays rock paper scissors against you or something like that, and then just slowly building up that those skills, and you just kind of watch some YouTube videos, but most of it is just setting out a small project and then getting as far as you can, and then Googling how do I do this little part, and then just really just steady practice on those sorts of things just builds up that knowledge, and then you kind of so combining that actual writing code with the architecture of how apps work. So yeah, like things like AppSheet and Power Apps come with Microsoft. Um, just kind of slowly building up that knowledge that it's not the same as if I was to go to school for a software engineering degree. There's lots of things that I haven't learned yet, but it's the best way to learn is just getting started. And it's I've got may not be it's not going to win any software design awards or anything like that. But it definitely works. It does exactly what it needs to do, and that's the important part if you want to get started on something. It's just building it, and then if you need to make it a bit more efficient down the road, then you can do that later. But you'll have time to do that.
Well, you mentioned YouTube, and I feel like I've learned so much from just YouTube and just searching something, and mine
Mm.
normally relates back to like Excel, or I wanted to do this, how do I get it to do that? I use MicroStation on a daily basis, so it has the VBA
Mm.
add-on coding stuff, so I've learned enough to be dangerous. I always try to comment enough in the background so that if somebody actually followed me, they might actually be able to follow my thought process, but
Yep.
more than likely they would be lost, and it probably follows no standards, but like you said, trial and error, make it do what you need it to do and make it happen, right?
Yep. Yeah, and exactly like the comments, putting comments in your code is probably one of the most important. Quality control, maybe it's more of a quality assurance thing for software. It's just having that documentation so that somebody can follow that process, and that in itself is huge. The difference that one line of this does this 6 months down the road is going to be massive.
Even
And
for
then
you that wrote it.
oh, exactly, yeah. There's so plenty of times when I was in that learning process, I've gone back and looked at one of the first things, and I don't couldn't tell you how this works. So yeah, that was a lesson I learned pretty early on is make sure everything's well documented.
Yeah, and I think that's key to the engineering mindset that so many
Mm.
people have, is just like explain yourself or have those questions answered, because there's so many what ifs, and engineers in my experience have been so fast to what if anything. It's really easy because they're thinking 3 steps ahead
Mm.
to how they want to finish something. Do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
So I want to be courteous of your time, don't want to take up too much of it, and because I know you're busy, but We do like to include a segment in every show. We call it the Power of Experience segment, where we ask you just to offer a piece of advice to the listeners, whether it's in your experience in what we've talked about, some other engineering experience, or just life in general.
Yeah. So I think something that's worked out well for me and I've kind of taken advantage of throughout my career is, saying yes to opportunities that come up that might be, you're not really comfortable with. For example, when I first got started, actually when I was still in university over the summers, I was given the opportunity to go work in northern Canada and some remote flying towns. So I said yes to that, kind of spirit of adventure sort of thing, and see what happens. But it worked out really good. I had a ton of fun, got a ton of experience in different sorts of things. Like it's different types of challenges and different types of problems that you have to solve when you can't. The next town is 6 hours drive away, sort of thing like that. So that was really cool. And kind of same thing happened. I moved to New Zealand sort of on a whim, with no connections in the country or anything like that. Obviously, you want to make calculated risks. Don't just do everything. But New Zealand was a country that had, big engineering skill shortages, so there's lots of jobs in that sort of thing. So, yeah, just kind of take the leap on something. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's learning software development. It could be all kinds of things. But just if you have an opportunity that you're kind of hesitant on, if you're think about it for a while, but it's a jump right in.
No, I think it's great advice. I'm thinking about things that I've said yes to over the years and things that I've said no to that I don't say I have regrets, but at the same time, I might have been able to get some valuable information or insight out of certain things that I said no to, and that have long since passed for me. I just want to give you the chance. So you do have a software that is available for people to use right now?
Yep. We're doing beta testing for the next probably 2 or 3 weeks, but then we've got some projects coming online in early to mid-February. So yeah, if you're interested, we can get you set up next couple of weeks.
So like what type of, if you were to sell this to somebody or offer this to somebody, like what would be your target? If there's a listener on here right now, like who are you talking to as far as that you could help today?
Right now we're focusing on those civil infrastructure projects. So roads, and our first 2 clients are going to be big road widening project and commuter rail project. So that's sort of our bread and butter at the moment. But a little bit farther down the road, we'll be looking into supporting, commercial and any of the bigger scale projects. Generally in the multi-million dollar range is kind of where we excel.
So if there's construction managers, they should probably check out your software.
I would say so, yes.
And what is the best way to connect with you and follow up if they want to keep up and keep on what you're doing and what you're offering?
Yeah, probably on LinkedIn is the best way to find me, just Jeff Carmichael. And then also you'll be able to find the link to the company LinkedIn page as well, and the website from my LinkedIn page, but the website is just www.qualomate, QUALOMATE.com.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Jeff. I appreciate your insight and wish you the best.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Please remember that you can find the show notes for this episode and all episodes at engineeringqualitycontrol.com. There you'll find a summary of the key points that we talked about today, as well as links to Jeff's website, qualomate.com, and his LinkedIn page. Until next time, friends, I wish you the best in all of your engineering endeavors.